The first podcast for the Traveller's Tavern. We're going to be covering a topic in the Curse of Straud adventure called Death House. It can also be run as a one-shot, but for my current party, I ran it as part of Curse of Straud because we are luckily going through that great adventure. I'm the DM. This is Kaci, who's one of my players. He will be obviously in this podcast. Kaci, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been playing D&D, and what's your favourite class?
I've been playing D&D for about a year and 4 months. Started around 3rd of April last year. My favourite class right now was the Artificer.
Great. This was actually your class while you were going through Death House, correct?
Yeah, it was.
But like I mentioned, Death House can be run as a one-shot or as part of this adventure. As its name suggests, it's got quite a bit of death involved. I didn't have a player death in Death House. Somehow. Almost had one, but
yeah,
they pulled through. But if you take the Curse of Straud book, if you go to Appendix B or page 211, you'll find the introduction to Death House, which basically explains what Death House is. It gives you a little bit of history, and it gives you the two main characters of Death House, Rose and Thorn. We'll get into them in a little bit. There's a little sidebar as well which talks of the level advancement, and it basically reads as follows. In this mini adventure, the characters gain levels by accomplishing specific goals, rather than slaying monsters. These milestones are as follows. Characters who gain access to the secret stairs in the attic, Area 21, advance to level 2. The stairs only appear under certain circumstances. Characters advance to level 3 once they have escaped the house. See the endings section. So that's the level advancement. I think I ran it a little bit differently. I definitely gave them level 3 once they left, but I can't actually remember when I gave you level 2.
I do. It was when we were in the library.
So, okay. So I did do that actually. But that's how I advanced their levels in the Curse of Straud campaign I'm currently running. The way I got them into Death House was they entered the village of Barovia and they seen 2 crying children, Rose and Thorn. Obviously they didn't know who they were at the time. Once they went up to, help the crying children, the children alerted the players that there is a monster in the basement of their family home. Obviously the players, being the good-willed people they are, they decided to go into this house to try and slay the monster and help the kids. Little did they know, the kids weren't kids, they were ghosts of the dead children. But some players didn't actually put it together that the 2 ghosts of these 2 dead children outside weren't actually the dead children at all. It was the house using the spirits of the children to actually lure the players in. The house being basically sentient. Once they actually got inside and spoke to the actual ghosts of the children had no recollection of actually speaking to the players outside. So right from the get-go, the house is against you. Now, as I mentioned, I ran it as a part of Curse of Straud, so you can run it as a one-shot. It would be great for a Halloween one-shot.
Absolutely.
But I think it runs better as a campaign, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But what we're going to be doing in this podcast is basically just talking about our experiences, me as a DM running it, and Kaci as a player who's experienced it, going step by step, floor by floor, and then eventually onto the basement, where the actual monster, the house lured them inside, is there, and they had to fight this monster. But the house itself is as follows. I'll put it on the screen now. As you can tell, it's quite not as much as a run-down house as you'll be expecting as a house in Barovia. For those who don't know what Barovia, do you want to explain Barovia to them?
It's a very quiet village, almost as if it's dead, but people are still there. There's people in every house. They're just too scared to go on the streets. Almost as if they're taking shelter from somebody.
Yeah. As soon as the players entered Death House as well, the mist around, which is seemingly controlled by the evil power of Barovia, closed in and it locks the players inside of Death House. So even if they want to escape, they can't. But the Death House features. This is a little bit of a big text box, so just bear with me as I read through it. The Death House's features. Death House is aware of its surroundings and all creatures within it. Its goal is to continue the work of the cult by luring visitors into their doom. Various important features of the house are summarised here. The house has 4 stories, which includes the attic, with 2 balconies on the 3rd floor, one facing the front of the house and one facing the back. The house has wooden floors throughout, and all windows have hinges that allow them to swing outward. The rooms on this 1st and 2nd floor are free of dust and signs of age. The floorboards and wall panels are well oiled. The drapes and wallpaper haven't faded yet, and the furniture looks new. No effort has been made to preserve the contents of the 3rd floor or the attic. These areas are dusty and drafty. Everything within them is old and draped in cobwebs, and the floorboards have grown underfoot. Now, as you get higher in the Death House, as Kaci knows, it gets colder. And a high insight check actually reveals that the cold is actually a representation of evil. And the colder it gets, the more evil it is. And I love it because when my players go to the Wizards of Wine Winery, Kaci went down at the basement and I mentioned it was cold. This had nothing to do with evilness or bad thoughts. It was just purely cold, and it made my players think that there was evil here. I mean, there was. You died.
Unfortunately.
But yeah.
I do believe I actually rolled insight in the house when you said it was getting colder.
I think I just gave you that information then.
No.
Oh well. I don't know what my mind goes through when I DM. It just happens. Ceilings vary in height by floor. The 1st floor has 10-foot high ceilings. The 2nd floor has 12-foot high ceilings, and the 3rd floor only has 8-foot high ceilings. The attic has 13-foot high ceilings. None of the rooms that are in this house are lit when the characters arrive, although most areas contain working oil lamps or fireplaces. Thankfully, all my characters have dark vision, so we didn't need to bother lighting any torches. Characters can burn the house to the ground if they want, but any destruction to the house is only temporary. After 1d 10 days later, the house actually begins to repair itself. Ashes sweep together from the floorboard and timbers, which then turn back into the sturdy wooden frame. And it takes 2d6 hours to actually fully repair the house. So even if the players decide to destroy the house, it's going to come back and you can always put them through it again. Which is great. The 1st floor of the house, I'll put the actual structure of the house floor by floor on the screen now, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I don't know how many floors it has, 1 sec. Let me go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 rooms, give or take a couple, and we will cover each of them rooms now. So, first and foremost, the most important thing. That sound is so satisfying.
It really is, it's so nice.
But, areas of the house. So the entranceway, main hall, and what's called the den. Actually, everywhere on the 1st floor doesn't have any of the forced DM text boxes like that, which kind of means they're okay to read out to your players without you having to customise what it says and everything. You're not giving too much information, you can just read them out fully, which is great. I love having them in campaign books. But for the entranceway, a wrought iron gate with hinges on one side and a lock on the other fills the archway of a stone portico. The gate is unlocked and its rusty hinges shriek when the gate opens. Oil lamps hang from the portico by chains, and they flank a set of oaken doors which swing open into a grand foyer. So straight off the bat, I mean, we can tell that this is quite a posh house, rich house. You know, it's got its own portico. It's got massive gates which swing open. But obviously, as the players go through, I ask my players to take a marching order, just so I would know who's at the front. And I think these gates going into the house is a brilliant time to take that particular marching order. No clue what the marching order was now. That information's gone out my head.
I know that I had a tendency to always go first.
Yeah.
So chances are I would have been one of the first.
Yeah, you would have been up front. You like to go first.
I was playing the front line of the group essentially.
Yeah, you were. You had a high what was your constitution?
+5.
Yeah, you had a 20 in constitution, so he was always up front.
Yeah.
Didn't serve him well when he died, but...
Well, that was only because I was on my own.
Yeah.
No one came to help me.
There was that. But once you get through, you get into a main hall, and it's a wide hall which runs the width of the house. It has a black marble fireplace at one end, and a sweeping red marble staircase on the other end. Mounted on the wall above the fireplace is a longsword. This longsword is non-magical, with a windmill cameo worked into the hilt of it. You'll notice a lot of windmill type.
No one picked up a longsword when we played, did we?
You attempted to, but you couldn't quite grab it. You couldn't quite reach it.
How high was it?
So there was the fireplace, which I want to say was maybe about 6 foot. It was a huge fireplace, and then it was above that, but it was like mounted, like fully secured on the wall. Not like my sword up there. So, no, you didn't quite manage to grab it.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, there's a lot of windmill themes around Death House.
Yeah.
Which I think only one of my players picked up on at the time. And on the walls, each wall is sculpted with, vines and woodwork. But if they make a DC 12 perception check, it actually reveals that they're not actually vines; they are serpents and the skulls, and it's quite evil. And this paneling follows the characters all the way upstairs. So there's another room, Area 2B. It's known as it's a cloak room. It has a top hat and some cloaks. Was it you who took the top hat?
It was me.
He took the top hat. The way I ran Death House, obviously we can't really show players maps, so I got a whiteboard and I drew out the house and I ripped some paper up, put each letter on the paper, and as they went in I revealed the room that way. But yeah, so the main hall has this main grand hall with a red marble staircase, a black fireplace, and then an off room, which is just a cloak room for top hats, cloaks, that sort of thing. My players didn't spend too long in here, they sort of realised that there wasn't much going on. So they made their way into the separate rooms. A couple of them went into the dining area, and a couple of them went into the Den of Wolves, which we will get to now. So the Den of Wolves, it's a lot less cool than it sounds. It sounds like a room where, you'll be having wolf encounters.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first read this, I thought, yes, we're going to be fighting some wolves. But sadly, no, it's just like a hunter's room where he keeps all of his belongings. It's a hunter's den. There's another fireplace, and mounted above the fireplace isn't a longsword but a stag's head. And positioned around the skirt of the room, there are stuffed wolves. There are 2 paddled chairs dripped in animal furs in the hearth with an oak table between them, supporting a cask of wine and 2 carved wooden goblets. One of the cabinets takes a dexterity check with a DC of 15. It holds a heavy crossbow, a light crossbow, a hand crossbow, and 20 bolts for each, so 60 bolts in total. My players did decide to take these, however, you've lost them, because when you get out of Death House likes to keep all of its belongings, so anything you took out of Death House, apart from in particular rooms, actually starts to rot and wither away.
I took the heavy crossbow and 40 of the bolts, I believe.
Yeah, you did.
Unfortunately, lost them after.
And as soon as you got out of Death House, you lost them. What's interesting about this room, however, though, there is actually a secret trapdoor in it, which none of my players found. The trapdoor is hidden in the southwest corner of the floor. It can't be detected or opened until the characters approach it from the underside, so they have to go down into the basement and then approach the trapdoor from underwards. Because the death house supernaturally hides this trapdoor. The trapdoor's location in the basement, there is quite an open room. It's one of the larger rooms in the basement. It has a statue of Straud in the room. There you get attacked by shadows in this room. That is the room that has the trapdoor underneath. So you would have to search that room quite a bit, but to search that room you would have to fight off and defeat the shadows, which my players did not.
No, we did, just about.
Just about, but after that they decided to run away.
Because it will almost kill me with Thunderwave.
Yes, we will get back to that. One of my players ended up using Thunderwave, which didn't affect the shadows and affected the other players, so well done, I guess. But moving on to the kitchen, we have a lot of stories about this kitchen, don't we? So I took inspiration from Realmsmith, who run a brilliant Curse of Strahd run through. The DM, Jason, I believe his name is, Jason gave them an NPC to help them out, one of the Vistani, and he then killed this Vistani in Death House, and I really love that idea, so I used the same idea, and I love the way he dies, I will admit. I also used the same way he died, but it hit my players hard, didn't it?
Yeah, it set up a good roleplay experience for the next session as well.
Totally. So the kitchen is just your typical kitchen, you know, it's got your cupboards, it's got a pantry, it doesn't have a table because, you know, it's got its own separate dining room. But there is also a dumbwaiter in this kitchen, and this is how I killed the NPC. They got into a battle just at the floor above. He was knocked down the stairs. He used the dumbwaiter to, you know, stick his head through and shout up. And as he shouted up, the dumbwaiter chopped his head off.
What makes that funny though is, before we got into the battle, I handed the NPC an axe to help defend himself. And when he got knocked down and died, I went to retrieve my axe. And that's where the session ended. So the session after, we had a new player joining us, and this character walked into the house to see me taking my axe back off a dead body with no head, which
makes it look like he killed the NPC. So when this player introduction came in, it was a really great roleplay session of Kaci having to basically explain himself. And you know what, I'll play that clip now, because thankfully I record all my sessions. You seemingly look at the kitchen where the door opens this way, and you can see the dead body. You can just see the lower half of the dead body. You know it's dead, there's blood everywhere. You can't see top half. But what you do see is a larger built figure, not a large figure, but someone who is on the bigger side, who is stood over this body, wielding a decent sized axe. What do you do?
Did you hurt the kids?
Whoa, who are you? Where you came from?
I don't know, some kids led me here. They said there was a monster. Did you kill them?
Oh, I saw the kids outside. No, right, this is worse than it looks. The dumbwaiter fell on this person.
So yeah, that was the clip. Who are you?
It was just like in the moment. No one actually really picked up on it when it happened. Like,
yeah, but it was.
Yeah, just this person coming in watching this big hobgoblin, the race I was playing, remove an axe from a bloody body. Go, did you kill that person? I just turn around and go, who are you?
It was great. As a DM, I actually found it quite hard not to laugh at that. Moving on, before we move on, I should say this dumbwaiter, we initially used it as sort of a race.
Yeah. Oh, that was perfect.
The way it worked was Kozol decided to run up the stairs while he was racing Klaus. Klaus was owlin. Now, owlins get to decide if they want to be a medium-sized creature or a small-sized creature. This particular player wanted him to be a small size, meaning he could fit in the dumbwaiter. So he got in the dumbwaiter, and then I used the NPC to not quickly wheel him up. But who won the race?
So
He
what
won the race.
happened was we both initially rolled a natural 1 each. So we both had to re-roll. And I believe I got an 8 whilst he got a 7.
Yeah.
I think you were rolling for the NPC. He was obviously pulling it.
Yeah. I can't remember. As a DM, I have way too many things going on. Now, moving on to the dining room. My players explored the dining room before we explored the kitchen.
Which room was the big piano in?
The big piano was sort of, it's in the room above the hunter's den.
Good say so.
For the dining room, the centrepiece of this wood panel dining room is a carved mahogany table surrounded by 8 back chairs, high back chairs, with sculpted armrests and cushioned seats. A crystal chandelier hangs above the table. Again, we can tell themes of a really rich, nice house, which is a constant theme throughout the first 2 floors. And then as soon as we go up to the third floor in the attic, it takes a change. It's just your bog standard dining room though. The serpents, the vines are still sculpted around the walls. Nice chandelier. But yeah, that is the first floor of Death House. Not much going on, but my players like to have a mess about. In fact, we actually had a cooking contest as well.
Oh, we did.
Where Korzol and Klaus, who is the owlin.
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme. We like to have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
We realised very quickly though that it's not.
Yeah, they've only just met somebody called Rahadin. And he kind of wiped the fun out of all of them.
Apart from me, I was smart enough to not be there.
Yeah, his new character was an Echo Knight, so he was like, fuck this.
Just teleported back.
But the way that the cooking contest was basically, in fact, specifically in this book, it says, where is the pantry? I actually found the pantry now. Anyway, for the pantry, it literally says all the food looks fresh, however, no matter what you do, it will always taste bland.
What about prestidigitation?
Prestidigitation would change that because obviously it's a spell.
Is that the only way to change it?
Yeah. So my players actually rolled dice to see how well they could cook, which didn't really help.
Yeah.
But yeah, we found out that they all were terrible cooks, even though it was just the food itself.
Yeah. I think y'all got really hard ones on it as well.
Yeah. Moving on to the second floor.
This is where I first started getting cold, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone actually picked up on it at the start. It was only when we got the third floor it got even cold that we started noticing it.
Yeah. So, what's quite interesting is the second floor doesn't have any major encounters, so to speak. There's a suit of armour. This armour shouldn't have animated, it's the animated armour that's in the floor above. But our first session in Death House was coming to an end, so I decided, you know what, I'll animate this armour instead. So this animated armour, the upper floor, again on the oil lamps mounted on the walls, again it's elegant. Hanging above a mantel piece is a wooden framed portrait of the Durst family, Gustav and Elizabeth Durst with their 2 smiling children, Wars and Thorn. Cradled in the father's arms is a swaddled baby, which the mother regards with a hint of scorn. Standing suits of armour flank the wooden doors on the east and west walls. Each suit of armour clutches a spear and has a visored helm shaped like a wolf's head. The doors are carved with dancing youths, but if they decide to make a perception check on these doors, there's a DC of 12. The check reveals that the youths aren't actually dancing, but they are fighting off swarms of bats. And again, the red marble staircase carries on going all the way up.
I'll actually try to check for that.
Nobody did. No, nobody did.
See, it's good to actually go back for this because a lot of shit we actually missed.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was this extensive.
And this is what I think as a player, this doesn't really affect a player because they just don't get to see it. As a DM, this is one of the worst things about being a DM because I have all of this cool information that the players are missing, and I can't tell them it because obviously the character. So like these dancing youths, I explained to them that the doors had these dancing youths on, but nobody checked. Therefore, I couldn't say they weren't dancing youths; they were swarms of bats.
I think what happened is that good of a DM, like you got like the fear instilled with us that much that we were too scared to check the doors in case it attacked us like a mimic or something.
Yeah, I've DM'd since 2015 now, so this is like my 7th year of being a dungeon master. I mean, I know there's DMs who have been going way longer, but for someone who's only 19-year-old like myself, it's quite extensive. But yeah, this is exactly it. Things my players don't get to see, and it's annoying. And this is one of the only reasons why I have Kaci here. Not only because I wanted to do a podcast with Kaci, but all of this extra information that one of my players could be getting. Kaci can't really do anything about it anyway, because not only it's metagaming for him, but his character who was in Death House has died, and he's got a new character now. Yeah. So even if this was his character who was sat here and I'm telling him all the information, he still couldn't do anything about it because that character is dead. So
rest in peace, Kozol.
Rest in peace, Kozol.
It was a brutal death.
It was. We'll get onto that a different time. Let's say. So the servants' room is where the dumbwaiter goes to, which is where the race ended. There's an undecorated bedroom, which contains a pair of beds and stores stuffed mattresses. At the front of each bed is an empty footlocker with tardy servants' uniforms hanging, which hang from hooks in the adjoining closet. So this room, other than the dumbwaiter, has absolutely nothing of value in it. It's just, the servants' room. It's this rich family for this rich house. They had nothing to do with this particular room. But
I'm pretty sure Klaus actually took a pair of servants' clothes to give to Cronin.
I think he did, but I don't think he actually ended up giving it to Cronin.
I thought he did. We'll have to ask him.
I don't know.
To be fair, yeah, it's very well done.
Yeah. Room number 8, as the book describes, the library. Now, this was after they fought the animated armour, which we'll talk about separately. But the library is the first textbook for the Dungeon Master to read, which I loved. So I'll read that now. Red velvet drapes over the windows of this room. An exquisite mahogany desk and matching high-back chairs face the entrance in the fireplace, which hangs above a framed picture of a windmill perched atop a rocky crag. Situated in the corner of the room are 2 overstuffed chairs. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves line the south wall. A rolling wooden ladder allows one to easily reach the highest shelves. Now, I use this library to level up 2 of my players, Kozol and Cronin. Cronin being a warlock and Kozol being an artificer. So the way I leveled them up was, I used the books, Kozol taking one of the books and realising it was his infusions. But yeah, you know what, again, I'll play the clip of him levelling up.
2.
None of the books stick out to you, but at the top, there's one book that actually is starting to glow, as if it's calling to you.
How is it in my reach?
No, but you can move the ladder to actually get up to it.
Yeah, I'll move the ladder to go and get this book.
And you open the book, and realise that it is a book which teaches the reader how to craft repeating shot, mind sharpener, homunculus survey, replicate magic item. You are now level 2. So I'll walk you through it. Roll your new health.
Yeah, I am a D8.
Alright.
So
I open the page.
You open this book, and this book tells you exactly how to harness eldritch invocations.
You fucking what? You fucking what?
So
Because that means I've leveled up.
yes,
Yes!
roll
You fucking what?
your new health.
So for me, it's 1d8 plus Constitution. Yeah.
So in the library, this is where obviously I leveled them up as you just seen, but there's actually a secret door. Behind one of the bookshelves, a book looks quite odd. If you pull the book, it opens up a secret door. In this secret room, our players went in all but one. I believe it was our Warlock Cronin. This door shut behind all the players, and it was up to Cronin to free them. The secret room contains bookshelves packed with tomes describing fiend summoning rituals, which are all bogus. To find out it's bogus, you have to study them for an hour and then succeed in a DC 12 Arcana check. There's a heavy wooden chest with clawed iron feet and the lid half closed. Sticking out of this chest is a skeleton in leather armour. Close inspection reveals that the skeleton belongs to a human who has triggered a poison dart trap. 3 darts are stuck in this skeleton, however they're no longer poisonous.
Would there be like a medicine check somewhere to see how long it's been since he was dead?
That would be a medicine check, yes.
Does it have a DC set in the book, or that's what you decide?
That would be something I decided. Clutched in the skeleton's left hand is a letter, and I'll read this letter now. My most pathetic servant, I am not a messiah sent to you by the dark powers of this land. I have not come to lead you on a path to immortality. However many souls you have bled in your hidden altar, however many visitors you have tortured in your dungeon, know that you are not the ones who have brought me to this beautiful land. You are but worms, writhing in my earth. You say that you are cursed, your fortune spent. You abandoned love for madness, took solace in the bosom of another woman, inside a stillborn son. Cursed by darkness? Of that I have no doubt. Save you from your wretchedness? I think not. I much prefer you as you are. Your dread lord and master, Straud von Zarevich. So obviously this is the first interaction my players had with anything to do with Straud, and it's obviously a letter from Straud to the owners of this house.
It was odd to see that. Obviously we were in a really elegant house, and the owner of the house was regarded as his most pathetic servant. Kind of laid out how powerful he really was.
Yeah, it really did. If the players opened the chest and looked inside, the treasure is as follows. 3 blank books that have black leather covers. If a player tried to sell one of these blank books, it would sell for 25 gold each. They contain 3 spell scrolls. I don't actually think I gave my players these spell scrolls.
Yeah.
Bless, protection from poison, and spiritual weapon. I need a push for any DMs watching this. Just because the book says give your player something, if you don't think it fits well for your campaign, you don't have to give them it. As well as if you want to give them something that isn't in the book, absolutely. The book is merely just a guide. You're the dungeon master. Do what you want to do. It gave them 2 deeds, the deed to the house and a deed to a windmill. I didn't give my players the deed to the windmill, I only gave them the deed to the house. And a signed will. The windmill of the deed refers to a windmill that was on the mountains to the east of Vallaki. If you, here's the map of Barovia. If you were to imagine Castle Ravenloft, you basically come out of Castle Ravenloft, go slightly left, and it's right there. My players actually really tried to go there, and I managed to persuade them not to, using Ismark.
I'm still intrigued as to what's going to happen next. We haven't actually been there yet.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going to go too much into detail, because obviously Kaci will be going there soon.
Yeah, we've just got back to Vallaki from Wizards of the Winery.
Yes. And I actually believe, somebody in the comments correct me if I'm wrong, but this windmill, it's actually supposed to happen before Wizards of the Winery, but I've done it in the opposite order. I've done Wizards first. The deeds give the windmill, the house, and any other property to the two children, Rose and Thorn, whose full name are Rosavalda and Thornbolt Durst. All the deeds, the books, anything from this chest, if the players take them out of the house, they won't sort of deteriorate like everything else, but they will deteriorate to a point where you can tell they are incredibly old, but still intact. But that is really all for the library / the secret room. Moving on, we have the conservatory, which is what Kaci alluded to earlier with having a piano. There's chairs all along the walls of the conservatory. There's a harp, a fireplace, and a piano in this room, and you can clearly tell it's some sort of like meeting hall where people would sort of dance and have a good time. But again, everything's covered in dust.
Yeah.
You can't really. It's old.
I think I actually managed to play the piano really well. I think I rolled performance.
Yes.
And I got like around 19 to 20.
Yeah.
So I think what you actually said was you managed to play Smoke on Water on a piano.
Yeah. I'll let him play Smoke on the Water,
Which is a guitar song. I think someone tried playing the harp along with me and they got a 3.
That was Sadie, whose character is Eden, who is our cleric.
The last member of the party is Shade, who is our druid.
Yeah. The balcony. If you go up the stairs again, you reach a balcony, and this is where they are supposed to get attacked by the animated armour. But just because I'm evil, although I animated the armour downstairs, I also animated this armour, so I did animated armour and left this one alone as well. So not only they had one animated armour encounter, but they had 2.
Actually, we didn't fight the second one.
You didn't fight the second one, though. They were lucky enough to stealth round the actual area where the armour would become animated.
Yeah. Not to say we left alone in that floor though.
Yeah. Oil lamps are mounted round again. Anyone who is making a DC 12 perception check on the walls, rather than seeing the vines becoming sort of serpents, they actually see the trees hanging down. The trees that were engraved weren't actually willow trees. It was actually loads and loads of nooses with people hanging from the trees, which is fun. Welcome against the Straud. There's a secret door in this area as well. A DC 15 perception check, which pushes it open and reveals a staircase which leads to the attic. Excuse me. The master suite though, moving on to the master suite, which is classed as area number 12. The double doors in this room have dusty paint and stained glass set into them. On the glass, the designs are windmills, again pushing the players towards the windmill. Anything interesting? There's a treasure chest in here. Do you notice a little jewellery box? Padded chair, tiger skin on the floor. You can tell that this room belonged to Elizabeth and Gustav Durst. Again, Dumbwaiter is coming up to this room, so again we have 3 stories above the
I
kitchen.
think I actually checked the jewellery box.
Yes, you did. In the jewellery box, there is a gold filigree, which is sort of the necklace thing you found. That's worth 75 gold pieces. It contains 3 gold rings, which cost 25 gold pieces each, and a platinum necklace with a pendant on it, which is worth 750 gold pieces. It's quite expensive things in this jewellery box.
Yeah, my character was kind of like the wealthy one of the group. I had the most money. I was buying my players like armour, weapons, whatever we needed really.
Yeah.
Actually, I bought armour for Cronin, whose age I believe was 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And I bought an armour which bumped it up to 16.
Yeah. So we got Cronin armour, which he wasn't proficient in, which bumped him up to 16. And then we thought, oh crap, he's a warlock who now can't cast spells because he's wearing armour he's not proficient in. But luckily before he done this, he actually took a level in Paladin, which made him proficient so he could still cast his spells.
Yeah, before that, Cronin had a tendency to almost die pretty much every single time in the room.
Yeah.
Everything he did almost killed him.
Yeah, it was basically like a glass cannon.
Pretty much, yeah.
In here we have the bathroom, which is a wooden tub, clawed feet, and a small iron stove and a kettle to actually heat the water up. The plumbing no longer works in this room, so moving straight into room number 14 is the storage room. Only one of my players went into the storage room, which was Cronin, and in this room he got attacked by a broom.
Oh yeah!
Of animated attack.
I forgot about that.
And Cronin had to fight a broom, which is very Cronin of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. But moving on to room number 15, this is what you alluded to earlier. This is the nursemaid suite.
Yeah.
And for this nursemaid suite, they got attacked by a spectre of the nursemaid. This is the room where Klaus, who is our Owlin monk, Klaus levelled up just before he went into this battle. This battle lasted up on several 20 minutes. Something like that. They ended up winning without a player death, which was great. Again, there's another secret door in this room. DC 15 perception reveals another staircase that goes up to the attic. But yeah.
I believe there was also another one on that floor, the nursery. Unless that was the floor above.
The nursery is...
I'm not sure if that was this floor or the next one.
Where the hell's the nursery?
So I thought it was...
Ah! Yes, there is a nursery, but it doesn't class as its own room. It's just connected onto the nursemaid suite.
Yeah, that's where we found baby Gustav.
No, Gustav's the father. It was baby Walter.
Oh, Walter, that's fine.
There was like a little bundle of cloth, as if a baby was wrapped up, and then as soon as they touched it, the cloth sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi styled disappeared. Yeah. So moving on, obviously we have more spare bedrooms, more storage rooms. If they go into the storage room, you know the storage, it was the one with all the tarps.
Yeah.
The Spectre attacks them in that room as well. However, they previously defeated the Spectre, therefore the Spectre obviously couldn't come and attack them. Another spare bedroom, and then finally the children's room. Other than the basement, probably the most important room. Again, getting
very eventful.
Again, got another DM text box. So this room contains a bricked up window flanked by 2 dusty wood framed bed sized for children. Close to the door is a toy set with windmills painted on its side, a dollhouse that's a perfect replica of the
entire house
house which you stand. These furnishings are draped in cobwebs. Lying in the middle of the floor are 2 small skeletons wearing tattered but familiar clothing. The smaller of the two cradles a stuffed doll that you also recognise.
I believe Klaus actually tried to open a doll house to see if I could see like a little like mini doll of us.
Yes, which he couldn't. But do you want to explain this room? See if you can explain what happened basically with the party.
Oh, what happened?
I should preface this by saying you didn't actually get in the room, did you?
No, there was only two in the room, Cronin and Klaus.
Yes, there was. You went into the storage room. These entered as you went at the door, slammed shut.
Yeah.
But what stuck out in this room for you?
So, obviously, when them two entered, I believe the boy, I forget his name.
Thorn.
I believe he actually went and like locked the door himself. Like he was like, keeping it closed.
Yeah.
Like magically, so we couldn't get in. And then Cronin and Klaus went search around the room, and they actually went towards the skeletons, which were the children, Rosa and Fawn. And then there were two ghosts of the kids again that came, and they tried talking to them.
Yeah.
And these children didn't know who they were. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no recollection of ever talking to them.
Yeah. Obviously the children were the same children from outside,
Yeah.
but had no recollection. Like I was saying, outside it was just the house being a sentient building, actually forcing these two spirits to come and talk.
I believe Cronin actually like I think Rosa asked to like hold his hand because like she was scared, something along those lines. And when she did, he became possessed.
Yes, he was the second possession though. Klaus got possessed first.
Oh.
Klaus sort of went to.
Oh, he went to go and pat the boy.
Yeah, he basically went to just like go and pat the boy on the head, and the boy disappeared. I sent everyone out of the room and I explained to Klaus he was now possessed. And then later on, maybe 5 minutes later, Cronin and Pinky promised the girl he will help them, which with the contact and the failed wisdom throw, the girl possessed Cronin. So Cronin now had two voices in his head because Cronin has the undead patron for his warlock. So he's got the voice of Azrael, which is his undead patron, constantly speaking to him in his head. He's very Jekyll and Hyde vibes.
Yeah, he does it really well.
But there is basically all of this side of the page, where you can't see it, is for what happens if a player gets possessed. So I'll quickly skim through it now. The ghosts are small and are lawful good. They have 35 hit points each. They lack the horrifying visage action, which is an action what the ghost stat block has, but these don't have it. They can speak common and have a challenge rating of 3. A character who is possessed by wolves gains the following flaw. I like being in charge and I get angry when other people tell me what to do. A character possessed by Thorn, who was Klaus, gains the following flaw. I am scared of everything, including my own shadow, and I weep with despair when things don't go my way. A character who is possessed by wolves or Thorn won't willingly leave Death House or the dungeon below it. Both ghosts can be intimidated Both ghosts can be intimidated into leaving their hosts with a successful DC 11 intimidation check. But that intimidation check does have to be made as an action. A ghost who is reduced to 0 hit points can reform at the dawn of the next day. The only way to put the spirits to rest is to take the skeletons. My players didn't actually do this. Is to take the skeletons and go downstairs into where the family crypts were, and to basically lay the skeletons to rest in the correct crypts. If the party does decide to do this, the party gets a party-wide inspiration point. So even if just one of the players decided to do this, all of the party would get an inspiration point for it. But none of us did.
Yeah.
But
I think one of us wanted to.
Wilbur wanted to, but you were sort of made to get out of the house quite quickly, let's say.
Yeah.
But there is a spiral staircase which leads down into the basement, or the dungeon, let's say. This was the first dungeon of Curse of Straud for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the first dungeon for them. The dungeon underneath Death House is carved out of earth, clay and rock. The tunnels are 4 feet wide by 7 feet high, with timber braces at 5 foot intervals, which made it really easy for me as a DM to draw the map. The only exception is Area 38, which had a 16 foot high ceiling. The way they find the dungeon, the way they find the secret door was to obviously use the dollhouse and realise that it's there, which he did. But the dungeon level access, first up, the Ghostly Chanting. From the moment you arrive in the dungeon, you can hear an eerie chant echoing throughout. It's impossible to gauge where the sound is coming from until the characters reach Area 26 or 29. But you can't discern the words until they reach Area 35. But the first area, the Family Crypt, we got here towards the second episode inside of Death House, didn't we? This is where we managed to free the characters from the possession. It basically just discerns the what's inside each family crypt. Elizabeth Crypt, I believe you went into Elizabeth's Crypt.
Yeah.
This is the only one where they got attacked. A swarm of centipedes boils out of the back wall and attacks if somebody sort of enters the room, which you did. And you were attacked by the centipedes.
I thought that was a really good idea. We'll get rid of them.
Yeah, I think when you first were attacked by the centipedes, because you've played D&D, like we mentioned, for about a year or so your mind is like, we are playing Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't think it's yet got to the point where it's like, oh shit, we are playing Dungeons and Dragons. Because when you first got attacked by the centipedes, you were like, it's only centipedes. Then they started doing ridiculous damage to you, and you're like, shit,
yeah,
we have an issue here.
We have a problem.
And then Klaus, he tried to create a wall, but he created like a wall of fire, didn't he, basically?
He used one of his cantrips.
Yeah.
I forget which one it was.
I know I mentioned earlier that Klaus is a monk, and we've just mentioned there that he's got cantrips. How does a monk have cantrips?
Yeah, it's his background.
It's his background. He has the Strixhaven Initiate feat, which gives him some spells from the Prismari Strixhaven College. That's how he's got spells. Yeah.
He used a cantrip, just kept on his fire.
Yeah, he just boom, which eventually created a wall of fire. Area 24, the Cult Initiative Quarters. Initiate Quarters. A wooden table and 4 chairs stand at the east end of this room. To the west are 4 alcoves containing mouldy straw pallets. What I think Death House does great, especially for Curse of Straud, is it really points to the fact that in Dungeons and Dragons, anything can be a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the insects, we had a fucking broom. Like, anything in D&D can be a threat. And
Yeah.
if you're running a D&D game for absolute newbies, maybe not do Curse of Straud. But if you did want to do Curse of Straud, it would be a really great introduction into D&D in the sense it's anything can hurt you and anything will hurt you sort of thing. I mean, Rahadin, he literally just goes near you and you become deafened by screams of the dead, which is really fun. Area 25 though is the Well and Cultist quarters. Again, it's what you would imagine for some quarters. You know, there's a well in the middle, little alcoves for each quarter, with a bed, and a chest in each one. Each chest can be opened with a DC 15 Dex check, which is obviously for sleight of
I
hand.
think I managed to do 4 in a row because I had lockpicks.
Yeah, you had lockpicks.
In the second one, no, the last one, sorry, I failed it the first time, but I used another one and succeeded the second.
Yeah. So the first chest contains 11 gold pieces, 60 silver pieces, which are in a pouch, and this pouch is made out of
Human flesh.
Death House. For the next chest, it contains a black cloth with 10 gold pieces inside the black cloth. The next chest contained a black leather eye patch worth 50 gold pieces. The next chest contained 2 ivory hairbrushes with silver bristles worth 25 gold pieces each. And finally, the final chest contained a silvered short sword worth 110 gold pieces. And Cronin just about got to it before you did. And he took the silvered short sword.
It was not the smartest about it.
Yeah. Area number 26, you didn't get to it, so this is going to be quite a shock for you, I presume.
I thought we covered every single room.
Aha. No.
Secret room.
Yes.
But that be anything goodness.
So I revealed footprints around in night that were in the ground. Them footprints were actually a hint towards this room, but nobody picked up on it. If you'd done a DC 15 perception check, you could actually sort of search along the footprints, which leads to a 15-foot long and 10-foot deep pit with loads of spikes. So you would fall prone, you would take a d6 of bludgeoning damage and 2d10 of piercing damage if you fell through it, which most assuredly would have killed somebody.
I think I would have been the only one able to survive that because I had feather fall.
Yes. Next up, the dining hall. The dining hall contained a plain wooden table flanked by long benches. There's bones lying in the dirt. Just beyond it, there's a larder, which contained a grick, which you had to fight the grick, didn't you?
I was the one who opened that.
Again, you were the one to open it and get attacked.
I mean, I killed it pretty quickly. It wasn't really much of a threat.
Yeah.
I think that room was where I used my first infusion.
Yes. Area 29, let me just double check what 29 is like. I didn't actually give you 29. You know, sort of like just before you went down the staircase, there was that sort of crossroads that was like kitchen that way, the Straud statue that way. If you actually entered the middle of the crossroads, I should have got attacked by 4 ghouls, one on each side, which are former cultists. The ghouls would fight you until they are destroyed. But I didn't give you the ghoul encounter.
How come?
Honestly, I skipped over it, I didn't even realise.
Not fair.
30 is more stairs down. 31 is a Dark Lord shrine, which is where he's got attacked by the shadows.
I think what happened there is 2 members of the party went into that room with the statue, and the other 3 went into a different room because there was a corridor going down, and the statue room was on the left, where we all went to the other 3 went to the right, including myself. And we heard the noises, and I think Shade shouted for help.
Yeah.
So we all rushed in. Some
Yeah.
of us were on pretty low HP at the time anyway, so it wasn't the wisest decision. But we all rushed to help, and that was a room where Shade almost killed me.
Yeah. So in this room there is a statue of Straud, which was the player's first time seeing
Yeah.
Straud. There was 5 shadows, which obviously they got attacked by. Straud let off a thunder wave to save them from the shadows, but it done the damage to them, and the shadows didn't get hurt by the thunder wave, which was great. Concealed door. Again, this is the room where it has the door leading up, which you didn't find.
Oh yeah.
What I find actually quite funny, I think it was you maybe. You finished the battle, and after you finished the battle, you sort of tried to go through another door, and that other door ended up being a mimic. Was that you?
I think.
Yeah, they went straight through a door, and the door was actually a mimic, and they had to fight a mimic straight after, which was really fun.
We did have the first mimic I never fought.
First mimic?
Never fought one before.
You know what? Fair play. Fair play.
I think the most common enemy in D&D, apart from maybe like kobolds.
Yeah, or goblins.
I've never fought a kobold as well. I think I fought a goblin.
Yeah.
We only get attacked by the big boys.
Yeah. Again, so we've just got your basic dungeon stuff until you go another layer down, which you can then sort of discern what the chanting sounded like.
I think there's more rooms on the floor.
Yeah, it was just your basic dungeon stuff, you know, like some dens and tables and that sort of thing.
There was the one where we got attacked by
The ghasts.
Yeah,
you got attacked by ghasts. Again, just
that was the owners of the house, wasn't it?
Yeah, the ghasts of Gustav and Elizabeth Durst. They burst through a wall and attacked you all. Yeah, that was just before you went down. Again, you went down though. You went to a reliquary, and you heard the chanting saying over and over again, "He is the ancient. He is the land." And there was relics in each of the walls, wasn't there? A lot of relics. And I'm not going to go through all the relics, but they are on screen at the moment. Again, you went down a bit further and there was the prison, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Which led into the ritual chamber.
Yeah, I think Klaus and Eden
Yeah.
both used stealth to get in, both succeeded, I believe, but they were still caught anyway.
Yeah. From this point on, I'm going to have to hold the book like this because you cannot see what is on that page.
Okay. Is it good?
Like I'm going to tell you that, Kaci.
Never know.
As they enter the ritual chamber, however, I have another DM text box to read, which reads as follows. The chanting stops as you peer into this 40-foot square room. The smooth masonry walls provide excellent acoustics. Featureless stone pillars support the ceiling, and a breach in the west wall leads to a dark cave heaped with refuse. Murky water covers most of the floor. Stairs lead up to some dry ledges that hug the walls. In the middle of the room, more stairs rise up to form an octagonal dais that also rises above the water. Rusty chains with shackles dangle from the ceiling directly above a stone altar mounted on the dais. The altar is carved with hideous descriptions of grasping ghouls and is stained with dry blood. Again, this was a really gruesome chamber because obviously we had the sort of chains up above where they would literally hang somebody and slice them and allow the blood to drip down. You got up onto the altar, and as soon as you got off the altar it triggered the next scene, which was you got attacked by the shambling mound, which is a creature that formed out of the vines and the sort of the refuse that was around, and it came up and it attacked them. As this happens, the chanting rises again as 13 dark apparitions appear on the ledges overlooking the room. Each one resembles a black-robed figure holding a torch, but the torch's fire is black and seems to draw light into it. Where you'd expect to see the faces are just voids. One must die, they chant over and over. One must die. One must die. Again, you have flashbacks, aren't you? Again, they had to fight this shambling mound,
Yeah.
which then triggered the end of Death House.
Mhm.
Either the cult was appeased, which it wasn't, or the cult is denied, which it was. If the cult was appeased, Death House harbours no ill will toward the party that was willing to make a sacrifice for the cult. Once the sacrifice is made, the characters are free to go. Upon emerging from the house, you all get to level 3. He didn't do it that way, he's done it the hard way.
Yep.
The cult is denied. If the characters deny the cult its sacrifice and either destroy the shambling mound or escape from it, Death House attacks them as they try to leave. When they return upstairs, they must all roll initiative as they discover several architectural changes. All of the windows are now bricked up, and
You forgot to mention one thing.
what?
What Cronin got? He paid.
Yes, I gave Cronin some paint, Nosel's marvellous pigments, so to speak. For those who don't know what Nosel's marvellous pigments are, is you can literally paint anything with them, and it came to life basically.
Yeah.
Can't draw magical items, sadly, but yeah, I gave Cronin some marvellous pigments.
Yeah, because when they actually tried painting the door,
Yeah, it just didn't work. All the windows are bricked up, and all of the bricks are impervious to any attack or spell that the party wishes to do, and that's why I didn't let the pigments work. All the doors are gone, which were replaced by slashing scythe blades. A character must succeed on a DC 15 acrobatics check, or pass through a blade trap, or pass through the blade trap doorway. If a character decides to spend a minute studying the blades, they can try and take advantage of a momentary gap, because you would realise a pattern. That would require a DC 15 intel check. Obviously failing either check, the character takes 2d10 of slashing damages.
You were nice towards the bottle though.
Yeah, I was.
Very nice.
Every room that contains a fireplace, an oven or a stove is filled with poisonous black smoke. The room is heavily obscured, and at the start of every turn you need to make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw or take a D10 of poison damage. The interior walls become rotted and brittle. Each 5-foot section has an AC of 5 and 5 hit points and can be destroyed with a successful DC 10 strength check. Each 5-foot section of the wall that is destroyed causes a swarm of rats to pour out and attack, and the swarm won't leave the house. But that is basically Death House.
One last thing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier the NPC that died.
Yeah.
One of our players, Shade, the druid, went to go and find the body because the player became emotionally attached to this NPC. But when they went to go and find the body, it wasn't there anymore, and there were bloodied footprints leaving the house.
Yes.
But when we emerged, they just disappeared.
Yeah. But that was Death House, and that is how Death House works. It's a great one shot. It's a great part of Curse of Straud. Not sure about you, but I would always prefer to run Death House as part of Curse of Straud rather than having it as a one shot.
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting one shot though.
I do remember you saying though it was at this point it was supposed to be like for a high level.
Yeah.
High level party, but you brought it down because we did it a bit earlier than we were supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, like it says in the book, Death House can easily be run for level 1, and you get to level 2 at the library, level 3 when you escape Death House.
Yeah.
But you know, running for a one shot, you can run it at a lot higher levels, and it arguably works better for the higher levels because you know you can make the shambling mound more powerful, and you can make the ghasts and everything a lot more powerful. Again, though, it has a complete change of tone because when you're in the house going searching initially, you know, you're taking your time, you're going carefully because of the arm, you go in each room. Like Klaus, who's our owlin, was using his wings, you know, to open the doors and go through. And then you get to the basement and it's not exactly fast pitch, but you're like, oh no, we've got this chanting, you know, we need to get through it quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, yeah, I mean, you are in full sprint, aren't you? You are just, we need to get out of this house is attacking us.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I think Death House is a great mini adventure, and that's what it is. It's a mini adventure. It's not a campaign. It's not a one shot. It can be used for both. So honestly, if you have a dungeon master who doesn't know what to do, or maybe you want to start DMing, run Death House. It's easy. Everything's laid out. I mean, all of the information I gave was only maybe half of the information Death House actually gives you. So it's a great one shot. Because I think the only thing you need to keep in mind for Death House is try and keep a horror theme. You know, have some spooky stabs, have some creepy, eerie music. Sirenscape is brilliant. It has its own Death House soundtrack, especially the children singing. The children's soundtrack is very spooky. As
is the chanting.
Yes.
The chanting's good.
As soon as, I mean, I hadn't heard the children chanting soundtrack on Sirenscape. I didn't realise it was there, and then we were going through Death House. I realised it was there, and I put it on. And in the video, my party's like, "Oh shit!"
All instantly. Just
everyone was like, "Oh my god!" Even I was. I mean, I kept my composure. I kept my DM's poker face, but even I was, "Oh shit!"
The way we have it set up is we all sit around the table. There's a TV behind us. Like it's down there, obviously it's our camera, but that's what we use to kind of like to show maps, anything important to play Sirenscape.
Yeah.
So it was behind us all. When they came on, we all just kind of like whipped our head round to look at it because we were like, what is that?
I mean, I don't know how you feel about the setup, but I really like having the TV behind you. Because as the DM, obviously I'm sat facing you, so the TV for me is in front of me, but then for all of you it's behind, so any sound it's coming from behind. And also, if I want to put a map up, it's incredibly easy for you to just go and have a look at the map.
Yeah.
So, no,
I like it.
Death House is a great one shot. I would totally play it again. I don't know about you.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you mentioned, I prefer it as a campaign rather than a one shot.
I prefer it as part of a campaign as well.
Yeah.
Because it's meant for a horror theme. So in a one shot, obviously, we were talking about this the other day. It's kind of like one of the longer one shots.
Yeah.
But in a full campaign, it's easy to get that horror sense in you, like more of a hopeless sense.
For us, we were in Death House, so I run 3-hour sessions. We had 2 full sessions, and then 3 full sessions really, because I ended that session when you got out of Death House, didn't I? So 3 full sessions, 9 hours. My players were in Death House for, and I mean. If I said to you, before I said that, if I said to you how long were you in Death House for, you would probably say like, what, 3 hours, 2 hours? It doesn't feel like you're in there for a while, but you are in there for a while. So it can easily be run for a one shot, but I would say ask your DM what sort of one shot he wants to run first, because if he's wanting to run, maybe a 3-4 hour one shot, then Death House isn't, because he won't get it done. And as a one shot, you can't come back to it.
Yeah.
So speak to your DM, and if he's down for a longer one shot, absolutely run Death House. It's brilliant. But like Kaci mentioned, it's great for a campaign as well, because you can get the horror theme. Again, you don't have to run it for a Curse of Straud campaign. If you're homebrewing a horror setting, absolutely run it for the horror setting. I mean, I'm about to start running Round of the Frost Maiden. I could easily run Death House and Round of the Frost Maiden, change it a bit so it's like, I don't know, Death Igloo. But no, jokes aside, I could easily run it for Round of the Frost Maiden, because again, that's a horror.
Yeah,
it's a dark horror campaign once again.
Curse of Straud.
Because Curse of Straud, you've got your darkness, you've got your horror, but Curse of Straud relies on the looming threat of the ruling power of the land, Straud, to come and attack you, and that's where Curse of Straud really thrives on its. I would say Round of the Frost Maiden is horror, whereas Curse of Straud is gothic horror.
Yeah.
Curse of Straud relies on the vampires to come and attack you, and werewolves, whereas Round of the Frost Maiden is just incredibly hard, but because it's got sub-zero temperatures, there's frozen dead bodies everywhere, and that's also horror.
It's also the only 18+ campaign.
Yeah, some people might argue Curse of Straud is an 18+. some people might argue that Realm of the Frost Maiden isn't an 18 plus. I think the official rating, not for the book, but if you were to buy like Arm of the Frost Maiden map packs,
Yeah.
I think it's looking at like a 15. But Realm of the Frost Maiden is absolutely an 18 game.
Yeah.
Some of the things in it, I mean, we won't go into too detail because I don't want them things being said on this channel. But some of the things that are involved in Realm of the Frost Maiden are very, very
Yeah,
dark.
we just did a session 0 yesterday,
Yes.
and we had to like look at what's actually in the campaign and like say if we're okay with it completely, if we don't want it at all.
Yeah,
if it
created
we're
the
okay.
the lines and the veils,
Yeah.
didn't I? I mean, really, I should have done that with Curse of Straud, but Curse of Straud, it's more of a dark horror rather than a gruesome horror. And with Curse of Straud, if you weren't okay with death, if you weren't okay with the rituals in Curse of Straud, then there's not much point because that is what Curse of Straud is. Whereas Realm of the Frost Maiden, some of the things, I mean, you can imagine this now. I can easily run a horror game without having them things in it.
Yeah.
But no, Curse of Strahd, Death House especially, I think it's great.
Oh,
I love it
Yeah.
as a mini adventure. I mean, even in the same campaign, I could easily run Curse of Strahd for use again.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think that's it. That's all we've got to cover on Death House.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in either the next podcast or one of our Round of the Frostmaiden episodes, which Kaci will be in. So yeah, I'll catch you all in a bit.